All right, guys. So
I
my
got to
name,
learn how to do this.
it's all on Zoom. It's great. So my name is Bridget. We're with the Inspection Boys, and we have Chris Reimers with Keller Williams with us today. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm so excited to have you. I mean, I think I consider you a friend. We're always talking, and I'm always running things by you on different ideas. So I think overall you're just an awesome agent, and you're really out there to try to help people. So thank you again.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions about what's going on in the
Let's do it.
market. Um, what do you think of what the current local housing market is right now?
Honestly, it's very insane because most people would be thinking like, oh, we're going through a pandemic. Everything is crazy. Everything is shut down. And although we are limited on the real estate side as to in-person interactions and showings and whatnot, you can't attend closings, can't attend home inspections. You would think that that would pretty much slow down the entire market, but not really. Now, of course, naturally, you're going to see a little bit of a dip because of the fact that we're going through a pandemic. So everybody is a little bit more cautious than they would be on the regular. But houses are still going for sale. Houses are still going under contract and closings are still happening. So it's not as crazy as most people would think it is. It's just forcing us as the agents to get a little bit more creative.
I think in the beginning as well, I agree with what you just said. And I think when everything first went down, it was kind of like a shock, like what the heck is happening?
Absolutely.
You know? So with the current market, the way it is with COVID-19, how have you had to adapt with this new market now?
So everything has gone virtual. So just like we're doing this right now, this is like kind of cool because I've been doing consultations like this, been doing showings like this. Luckily, I was able to get a few video tours before this stuff happened. So, kind of dishing out the showings via video, that's really been the biggest thing. Outside of that, business is still as normal. Like you still can interact with people. It just has to be virtually.
Absolutely. And I think, especially for you, you've always been heavily involved with social media. And I think that really has just kind of really helped you as well.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool because now it puts you in a position where you could really utilize this time to focus on your social media presence and the value that you're going to bring, right? Because everything is kind of crazy. So people really want to be updated on what's going on. And I have probably never had this much interaction with so many people regarding what's going on in the market because I think there have been a lot of people who are interested in getting into real estate, whether it's career-wise or just looking to buy and sell. And everybody's like, okay, what does this mean? Is now a good time to buy? Is now a good time to sell? And those are just the conversations that I've been having for like the past month and a half.
Absolutely. And, I think there's so many people right now. I know for myself, when everything first went down with COVID-19, we had a lot of cancellations and home inspections because nobody knew what was going to happen in the market. And I have to say, a lot of those people have come back and like, okay, we're ready now. Let's
Yep.
proceed,
Yep. And you'd be surprised because you'd think that the fact that you can't go and actually physically see the house, that would stop people from making purchases, but not really. Surprisingly, a lot of people are really comfortable with these video tours that we've been able to provide them. So it's actually really interesting, and I think it's changing the way that business is going to be done even after coming out of this pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually completely shocked on how people have reacted towards the virtual open houses. That people are still doing. I was kind of worried, like this is uncharted territory, so you don't really know what's going to happen. So it's really nice to see that deals are still happening, and considering that it's a virtual open house.
Yeah, it's the new norm.
For buyers and sellers, what do you think are some qualities that they should be looking for when choosing a real estate agent?
To be honest, I think that the two most important things that anybody, whether a buyer or seller, should be looking for, two things. Are they knowledgeable? Do they know what they're doing? And tying into being knowledgeable, are they creative? Because every deal is going to be different. So really understanding the ins and outs of a transaction and how to solve problems. And then aside from that, just somebody who's going to be honest and is going to maintain integrity throughout the process. Because I see for a lot of people, when the money comes into the picture, that's when they start to kind of like, okay, maybe I can make this decision because it's going to benefit me. Really finding somebody who's going to stick to true core values of what their fiduciary duty is, that's super important, especially in these times, because you do not want to get taken advantage of. And for most people, this is their most important or their largest asset that they're dealing with. You want to make sure that it's treated properly with care and with somebody who's going to be honest.
That's so true. And I mean, during this whole real estate transaction, what do you find is usually the most frustrating part? Is it that many?
Yeah, I'm like, wait, which one is the one? Honestly, I think it's just the speed in which things happen, or the lack of speed in which things happen, because depending on who you're dealing with, some people move a lot slower than others, and that can kind of hold up the process and kind of make it drag to the point where it could put the entire deal in jeopardy just because certain deadlines might not get met, or you're trying to get things in a timely fashion just to meet the requirements for everybody so everybody's happy and comfortable. And some people want to take days to get back to you. Some people want to take days to get a job that could be done within like 15 minutes to like an hour.
That's crazy.
And it's taking them a week. It gets crazy.
So
I don't like to point fingers.
So with all that taken into consideration, do you think building a team helps you be more successful?
Absolutely. Both within like the actual real estate business, and then partnering with your different vendors. Because once you can actually build those relationships, you know that there's people that you can rely on, people that you can leverage to really be there to support you in a way to make the transaction successful no matter what happens. Because in every deal, there's always going to be some sort of monkey wrench that's thrown into it. There's almost no deal that goes without some sort of like hiccup. But if you have the right people on your team that you're dealing with, from the inspector to the attorney to the person doing insurance to the person doing the mortgage, if you're all on the same page, you can all brainstorm together to figure out what's going to be the best option. And to be honest, during this pandemic, there have been a lot of situations that I've been dealing with where if I didn't have all the people on the same team, probably would have lost a few deals.
Wow.
But the fact that we're able to come together and really kind of, put our minds together and brainstorm as to how to solve the problem to make it work for the benefit of the client, that is something that I'm like, thankfully, I work with people that I know, that know each other, that are comfortable with each other.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of really coincides with us as an inspection company too, because even though you guys are involved in much more of the process than we are, we're just a small part, but we play such a big part. And even,
Absolutely.
Building a team within you guys and the lenders, we know what the lenders want, like termite inspections or different, 203K loans, they want different documentation, or, so having that crucial team is really important, because you really want to make sure that the deals go as smoothly as possible. And you guys, especially, you guys have to deal with so many different people, and I can't even, God bless you for being an agent.
You know what's so interesting? It's like, I think the home inspectors and the attorneys typically get labeled as like the deal killers. And
I know.
Yeah, and depending on who you're working with and their approach to anything will determine that. Because I've worked with people who on the inspection side, I'm like, oh my God, you're destroying the deal. This is not the worst thing. But even just coming down to the way that you communicate the findings within the home inspection, that could be a red flag to a lot of people. Understanding the specific client that you're dealing with and their level of worry, that's going to be something that could be a red flag to people. So the fact that, and that's why I appreciate you guys, because you understand that and you know how to interact with the client to avoid that. It's key, because people want to, and not to say that, people have to work with the real estate agent's team, but I always find it so much more beneficial, and the deal typically 9 times out of 10 will go a lot smoother than having random parts thrown in.
Absolutely. And, I think I really appreciate that compliment. I'm really thankful to work with such a great agent such as yourself. But like, even when it comes to the home inspection part, like when we first, like, I really appreciate when the agents call us first. And if they're having a difficult client, you guys tell us in advance, like, hey, just so you know, they're very nervous about everything. You
Yeah.
know, like, and that in my head, I know, okay, when we get to the property, we have to be very careful not to upset them anymore, explain things, you know, a lot more clearer, and deal with them a totally different way, because the home inspection process is such a stressful time,
Oh
you know.
yeah.
And I always try to instill in the buyers or even sellers, because we're doing a lot of pre-listing inspections now too, just trying to instill in them, there is no perfect house. If you want a perfect house, it doesn't exist. And, you know, we're here to tell you the most important items that come up that could be of a safety concern. That's what we're here for. And we're going to give you a full in-depth report, but we're really going to focus on XYZ here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I tell people all the time, even if you're looking to buy new construction, don't expect the place to be spotless, because it will not be.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even on new home inspections, new construction home inspections, people will still be like, oh my God, I thought the house was brand new. It's like, yeah, it's brand new, but it doesn't mean that everything was done perfectly.
So true. So true. Because contractors, unfortunately, sometimes, especially, they try to take shortcuts. And
oh yeah,
we do a lot of new builds or even flips. Like, you have really good flippers and then really bad ones.
oh, we
And
see it. It can get really bad sometimes.
yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
So what do you think is your biggest, what makes you the most different over other real estate agents?
To be honest, I think for me, it's my level of creativity. I'm not my level of creativity when it comes to problem solving and really being ahead of any type of issue that could come up and figuring out multiple ways to figure out the situation. Because I've seen situations where I've spoken with other agents and they've told me things that they're experiencing. And it's like, oh, the deal died. And I'm like, walk me through it. Tell me what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 sentences in, I'm like, you could have done this. 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 And the deal would have still been alive. And I think that's probably the key, right? Because everybody that's licensed as a real estate agent essentially has like the basic level knowledge to be able to carry you through the transaction from the beginning to the end. Most real estate agents are going to understand that you have to do a home inspection, that you have to go and sign contracts, that you have to go work with the mortgage bank to get the loan. But I think once you learn the intricacies of every aspect of it, that puts you in a position to really be able to protect the deal and make it work for whatever side of the client that you're representing. And I think for me, that's my biggest thing.
And that's so important, because even when I bought my house, there were so many things that were happening along the way. And, you know, I wish I had like an agent like yourself during that time, because I was fixing a lot of my like a lot of the problems that were coming up, but I was very uneducated at the time on how to go about all that. So it's really nice to hear that you're there to try to fix everything as much, you know, I don't want to say fix, but try to problem solve where you can.
Yeah.
You know?
And I've had conversations with a lot of people who have not worked with me and ended up going the route of for whatever reason, working with another agent. And it's so painful to me to hear these conversations or have these conversations where there's so many issues post closing that I'm like, how did this happen? How did this happen? And, you know, it's just a testament to say that all real estate agents and brokers are not created the same.
Right.
And I think people just have like this stigma where it's like, oh, well, I'll just work with whatever agent, and not realizing that it's going to compromise not only the experience in the immediate while you're going through it, but after you purchase the house. Like, now that's a very big responsibility. So if you weren't protected a certain way up front, that's going to put you in a position where you may have a lot of problems that are very costly problems once you own the home and the responsibility is 100% yours.
That's so true. That's so true. I
Scary.
never thought about it that way. That's a great point. To kind of go back a little bit, kind of reverse a little, we were talking about a little bit about social media, and I mentioned it earlier that you have a great social media presence. Like, you do a great job, like way better than what I do. And I want to be you, because you're always in your car doing
It's
live.
not that great. It's all right.
I'm not into video, so this, for me to do this, is a huge thing right now.
Video is where it's at.
Yeah, you know what, I'm seeing that definitely. Can you talk about how you use social media to benefit your clients?
It's To be honest, it's the way that I use my platform. It's really just to build my network. And of course, the stronger your network, the more leverage you have when it comes to working with anybody or representing somebody. So whether you're working with a seller, the bigger your network is, I can go and post a property that I have for sale or whatever on social media, and I can get a decent response from the people within my network that may not have been thinking to look at that specific property. And that's something that I find happens very often. Anytime that I post like, oh, I have this for sale, or I have this for rent, or this property is available, I get a pretty decent response from a lot of people that just inquire about the property. So just more exposure on that end. And then, on the buying side as well, like I use my platform not only to target people who are looking to buy and sell, but I contact and I build relationships with a lot of different agents. And that puts you in a position when you're working with me as a buyer's agent. Now, if there's a house that you want for sale and it's with XYZ realtor, and that's one of my good friends, you're more likely to not only get the house, but probably get it at a better deal, because they're going to want to do a deal with somebody that they know, that they're comfortable with, that has a good reputation. And that's what I try to use my platform for.
That's such a good point, because I mean, there's so much online marketing for you guys as agents to be doing, and a lot of it doesn't cost money. Like a lot of like posting your listings, or making more, networking more online. A lot of this is also free marketing, and I think you do a really good job taking advantage of that. So
you have to.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last question for you is going to be the market right now. I mean, we're dealing with COVID-19, so much uncertainty of what's about to happen. What do you think is going to happen post COVID-19? What do you think the market will be like? How will things change?
This is a conversation that I've been having with a lot of people, and it's interesting because there's so many different opinions as to what's going to happen. In my opinion, I like to just pay attention to what's going on and the numbers. So right now, and it's kind of conflicting, because right now we're still seeing the prices, they're pretty much remaining the same as they were before. However, I can only imagine, just off of the stuff that I've been experiencing personally within a lot of my deals, is that the unemployment is through the roof.
Yeah.
So I would only imagine that as the unemployment continues to rise, less people have jobs, less buyers in the market, which would ultimately, in my opinion, continue to shift it more towards a buyer's market, where in the past like 3, 4, 5 years, it's been predominantly a seller's market in most areas. So I would only think that, if unemployment continues to rise, people don't have jobs, that means people can't buy houses. You have less people buying houses. The people that are buying houses, it's going to be far and few in between. They're going to have the leverage to select over the inventory. But the only thing that makes it kind of funny is that the inventory still isn't really that high. So it may kind of just get to a point where it remains somewhat stable, where it's like right there even, where it's like same amount of buyers, same amount of sellers, and kind of stays there. But honestly, I think probably by this time next year, I see a pretty decent drop off in prices. But for now, I think it's going to remain relatively stable. In my opinion, I don't necessarily see like a crazy drop immediately. I don't think it'll be like June 1st, prices drop 40%. But I think by next year, you can probably start to see that trend really start to grow in that direction.
I think for me, I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen. A lot of these small businesses are getting these PPP loans, and even independent contractors can get them. What happens after the 8 weeks that the government gives you help for? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of these small businesses are keeping their employees afloat, but a lot of these states, especially New York, I mean, New York, we were hit hard. And what's going to happen once they run out of the funds?
Yeah. And
what's the economy going to look like?
Yeah. And even for the people that are buying homes now, like, it's scary to see, like, for these people that are buying now, maybe your job is secure for the immediate while all of this assistance is available, but maybe in 2-3 months from now, it's going to all be gone, and you just purchased that house, and now what is that going to look like for you?
Yeah.
So realistically, like, I think anybody who has like an essential or like a healthcare based type of a job, those are the people that are super secure. If you're like a doctor, nurse, police officer, anybody in like that realm, like one of these heroes, you should probably be safe because your services are always going to be needed. Anything outside of that, that's when you're like, maybe you're good now, but who knows what's going to happen to your company once, this quarter's over or 2 quarters from now. What are the decisions going to be from a lot of these companies?
Yeah, that's true.
That's what scares me.
And what's going to be, I can't help but imagine, like, are we going to be doing a lot more virtual from here on out? Like, what's the days of offices? Or I've heard of all these big corporations in Manhattan that are talking about getting rid of tons of office spaces now because their employees can do just as much from home.
Yeah, even outside of real estate. But I think it'll be something that's incorporated. But even just having conversations with people in real estate, outside of real estate, I think the in-person human interaction is something that you can't put a value on it. So I think it may start to limit some things or give alternatives to some things. I think people are going to be more open to doing these kind of meetings and consultations and whatnot. But I still think in person is going to remain on top overall.
Yeah, I hope so, because I do I'm kind of like a social person.
Yeah. Like I always thought, I'm like, I don't like being out. I don't like doing this. But then now being in this quarantine, I'm kind of like, well, maybe I do kind of like actually interact.
In doses, right? Because I get the same way. Like, oh yeah, this is great. And then next day I'm like, oh my God, forget everybody. I don't want to see anybody.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to be trapped, but I just want the option. Like,
right.
If you let me know if I can, then I'll go do it. Or maybe I won't. But I don't want it to be like, no, you definitely can't do it.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. And everybody who's watching this, please like this and share it. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.